to our Parallels Desktop 13 launch. My name is Kevin Greeley, I'm General Manager for Parallels Asia Pacific, and with me in the red corner here I have Kurt Schmucker, who's our Senior Product Manager Parallels Worldwide. And we've timed it very well, I think, because today is actually the launch date for Parallels Desktop 13. So a little bit of housekeeping. We have an embargo until 11 p.m. tonight, so keep your fingers off those Facebook, Twitter, those different feeds until for a few more hours, please. And as tradition dictates, because we don't make any mistakes in our software, obviously there are no bugs when we release it, but we do put a couple of typos in the deck for you guys to find, so that the first person to find a typo in the deck has to stand up, put a hand on their head, or do something equally stupid, and you'll win a prize if my mom dictates that this is actually a mistake. So
there's two spaces between the comma and the capital P of Parallels count, because you can see with comma and APAC there's only one space.
My mom, this is a good test for my mom.
I can see two spaces. I mean, hello.
That depends on
You didn't stand up, Alex.
It's
no
not
prize. Sit down.
Just
Sit down. Okay.
I'm not
So we're here today to talk about the new version of Parallels Desktop, but we do have some other very important products in our range. Parallels Remote Application Server, which delivers applications and virtual machines, virtual desktops to any device running any OS. Parallels Mac Management for SCCM, which allows Windows administrators that are managing Windows machines with SCCM to now manage their Macs as well, all under one pane of glass. A very useful tool for some corporate environments and administrators. And Parallels Toolbox is a set of single-purpose tools for Mac and Windows, which we'll discuss a little bit later on. So let's turn our attention to Parallels Desktop. As you might know, Parallels Desktop allows Mac users to run Windows and Windows applications without rebooting. We can see here that we have virtual machines in both Windows 10, Windows 7 and Ubuntu running at the same time on a Mac. So you can imagine the type of power and flexibility that this will provide to Mac users. Let's go into a little bit of detail on the new version. So throughout its 13 version history, we've pioneered many innovations that have brought both power and simplicity to Mac users, and Parallels Desktop 13 continues this tradition in fine fashion. So we were the first to bring Windows to Mac without rebooting back in 2006 when Intel, when Mac started shipping with Intel chips. And highlights include support for gestures and for Retina display, and well, we've always brought the best of Mac to Windows. And in more recent years we've also brought some really cool things from Windows across to the Mac side, believe it or not. So many of you will have seen some of the things we did in the last couple of years with Cortana and Microsoft Ink. This year we've done one of each, so we think you're going to like what you see.
Sorry, Kevin, in case of any dispute, you need to the price. I'm sorry, we have the SSD and the wine. We need to choose the price.
First one is the SSD.
So just in case, you know.
You'd think there'd be a mistake here, wouldn't you?
I just want to make sure.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry for the interruption. Yeah.
So when we began planning for version 13, we focused on these 5 areas. And I'll say a little bit about each area before we move on to the main event, which is Kurt's demo. Firstly, after canvassing our new users, we found that they were having challenges getting their first virtual machine onto, getting the idea of another computer running in a computer can be a little bit much for some people. I do understand that. So we worked with Microsoft to simplify genuinely down to a single click the installation of Windows 10. So Kurt will speak a little bit about this later, but basically I'll steal his thunder that if Parallels Desktop finds that you haven't got any virtual virtual machines, GMGs, or anything of Windows or ISO files on your computer, it will bring you to this screen and ask you if you want to install Windows. And it's a really cool feature. We're very happy with that. Also, we noticed that Mac users don't seem to heed Windows warnings. What is it with Mac users? I know we're a bit of an arrogant bunch, but as a result, Windows virtual machines could get corrupted. So what we've done is we've added Mac warnings that people seem to have a little bit more faith in, so people don't make these catastrophic errors and get corrupted virtual machines. Next slide, please, Kurt. So we've always strived to bring Apple software and hardware innovations to Windows and Windows applications. And we're continuing this in Parallels Desktop 13 by bringing touch bar support to Windows. And Kurt has a really cool, very nice way.
Well, you've got Toolbox.
Oh, you got it!
I'm impressed. So
Well,
this,
we're
this
really-
slide went through
Thank you,
three
thank you.
revisions of looking at it, and nobody caught it.
Yeah.
This
This
is
is
a real.
I
put
saw
there by
Toolbox,
mistake.
and
It was
then-
real error.
As soon as you
Good
said,
catch.
as soon as you said touch bar, I knew it straight away.
We're
Thank
sending
you.
Alex to get tested for Asperger's straight after this.
And sorry, he cannot. Are we going to?
I don't want-
Can we win the second prize?
Yeah, yeah, that's
Yes.
all right.
We got it. We're leaving the second prize open to mere mortals. Okay,
Okay.
let's go. So, in recent years, there have been some big Windows innovations we're cool enough to bring over to the Mac, like Cortana in Parallels Desktop 11. So in Parallels Desktop 13, we've got this cool, the People bar is coming over from Windows. And this is a really cool feature that Kurt will also demonstrate. And we've got some special guests included in that. You go to the next one, Kurt. So, of course, everyone wants improved performance. It's what we strive for in our lives, what we live for. Everything's about growth and faster and everything. And in Parallels Desktop 13, we, among other performance improvements, we've doubled the speed of Thunderbolt SSD. So now you can run a VM on an external drive and at near native speed. In fact, you wouldn't notice at all. It's a beautiful thing. Like earlier versions of Parallels Desktop, we'll go to the next one please, Kurt. Parallels Desktop 13 comes in 3 editions. You'll see our standard product here. We also have our professional and our business editions. Now by their very nature, the new features in the Pro edition are pretty geeky, so I'll leave them to Kurt and people like him, and you know who you are. Jocks like me don't generally concern ourselves with such things, obviously, but we can see these are cool, particularly being able to run 32 cores and 128 gig of RAM per VM. So when the new Mac Pro comes out at the end of the year, we're ready for that, for these real beef things. And Kurt has volunteered to get a Mac Pro to test it out for us, which is great.
And Kevin approved requisition last night, so I'm really pleased. That's my Christmas gift for myself.
I don't remember this. I want to see the evidence, but yeah, apparently.
That was that fourth glass of wine.
Better to ask for forgiveness than permission. Just right.
Similarly, new features in the Business Edition address very specific needs of system administrators running large deployments of Parallels Desktop as well. And one very cool feature, and this is really down to very useful for a company that just needs that. They've got a bunch of Macs, they just need that one application.
Sorry to interrupt.
Steve, come on.
Hey guys, sorry for being
That's all right. They just need that one application. So we've got this single application
here
here,
or here, wherever you
and by its definition, it takes a lot of the clutter away from the Mac. So you can see here the Parallels Desktop logo, the Windows is gone. The only thing that's left is Kurt, Internet Explorer. I called it Edge last night, I got in trouble. So Internet Explorer, and very, very useful for administrators as well. Of course, Parallels Desktop supports the latest in whatever Microsoft or Apple can throw at us with new versions. We're always ready to support and work closely. We work very closely with both companies to make sure that the operating systems
It's
perform
fully
well.
supported.
Absolutely, fully supported.
You did tell
Yeah.
me.
Well done. And my mom will pass your prize,
I will
Janice.
take care of I'll send it to you directly online.
Well done.
Sorry, Steve. I think you missed out. You missed out on a SSD, 2 prizes that we gave away.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay.
Okay.
I saw Steve as a proper publisher saw the look of disdain in his face when he saw it. I noticed that there should be something, maybe another copy of Parallels Desktop. So And next slide, we've also, you can see we've actually modernized the look, bringing us into 2017. A beautiful look to fit both and the latest Mac OS versions as well. So when we go to High Sierra, it'll fit in very nicely. And bundled with Parallels Desktop 13 is the new Parallels Toolbox 2.0. Toolbox, as you'll also see this in the demo. Some of you have seen it last year. We've added a number of new features into Toolbox. And also, I find it's the best way to download and the easiest way to download video from YouTube, Facebook, just drag and drop. It's beautiful, and Kurt's going to show another really cool feature we've just added to that. Also bundled with this is Parallels Toolbox 1.0 for Windows. So we have 32 tools now. We had 20 last year, if you remember. In the Mac version, we have 18 tools in Windows. All really cool features and very useful, so we don't have to worry about command control, tab 4, 6D, which I don't even know what it does, but Kurt tells me it will self-destruct me or my machine, I'm not sure. So we'll pass over to Kurt to demonstrate Parallels Desktop 13 and touch on Toolbox for Mac and Windows.
Can I just ask, with the when you say if you haven't got Windows, it asks you if you want to download it. Presumably then it'll ask you to pay for it or type in a code if you've got it.
Yeah, so what we have is, we don't call it,
The way that it actually works is the following. You click that one button, it downloads a Windows 10 ISO from Microsoft, and we've worked with them to get a really deep link, so you don't actually have to buy it at that time, buy it later. And so that one click really does install Windows 10 and get it up and running in a VM for you, ready to use, and then you buy it when you want. It's a really nice feature. We're pleased about that because we saw so many new users really struggling. Where do I get Windows 10? Things like this. And so Microsoft was very gracious to help us with that, and we put it in the product.
And how long is the trial period? 30 days? Or?
It's longer than that.
Okay. And the only other question is it the same price as you get in a Officeworks or a Best Buy? Or
So you can buy your Windows 10 product key from any source, and it'll work in that ISO.
Okay. So, can you buy it from within that?
Yes, you can buy it from Microsoft online directly, or you can buy it from a retailer and put the key in whatever you wish to do.
Okay, great.
Now, just like I say, it's a real improvement from before. If you remember, we do have the demo environments in there as well as virtual machines, but these could not be upgraded. So this is a really nice way of getting Windows, and just the easiest way that we know.
Simple and easy.
So before I start my demo, I tell you two things. One is I'm on the new Touch Bar Mac, really nice, and of course I'm running the latest release of Sierra. I made the decision not to go to High Sierra for the host OS on my demo machine for an important tour like this. It just wasn't ready yet, and we'll talk more about that later. And the second thing to mention is that right now I'm using a late beta of Parallels Desktop, and I'm using an insider preview build of Windows. So I have beta on top of beta. I've prayed to the demo gods not to have a problem occur. It has happened in some of my demos, but they're usually not horrible issues. But you get no prize for noticing a glitch like that. Okay, so I want to show you some of the features that Kevin talked about. Interrupt me with questions if you're not sure what I'm doing or want more detail. And we also have time for Q&A at the very end of my demo. So I'm going to start out with the feature that I think is the coolest, and that's touch bar support. So in case you haven't used a Mac with touch bar, I launch preview here. I get some really nice buttons on my touch bar, but you can't see them because I can't show you the touch bar easily. So what I did was I got hold of a third-party utility that puts the touch bar on the screen, and that's called Touche. And that'll show you what's going on in my touch bar. When I click here in preview, I get a bunch of buttons available to me. It turns out to be really important that the person who designs the buttons for a particular application has to know the application really well, to know what things are really the most commonly used, what would be really easy to use as a button. And I'll try in my demo not to use my finger on the actual touch bar, but use my mouse on the touche so you can see what I'm doing. But if I forget and you're lost, please say, what did you just do? I'm happy to explain it. So here, this person who designed the buttons for here, which is Apple, put in features that are really commonly used. I can turn things around like this. This is really nice. And that's a great use of the touch bar. And in general, what the touch bar is, if you haven't used one, is a little tiny retina display built into the keyboard, above the keyboard, I should say. Right now, it's only on this device. There are rumors running around about Apple coming out with a keyboard for like the iMac and so on that'll have a touch bar. I was bummed they didn't announce that at the developers conference in June. Maybe it's coming in the fall, I don't know. But it's a really nice innovation and an ease of use thing for Mac users. And because of that, we decided to build in support for the touch bar in Parallels Desktop 13. So when Parallels Desktop is the frontmost application, and there's no application running in Windows, what we show you in the touch bar are the buttons that you put in the taskbar. So here you see IE, Edge, OneNote, so on. And that's exactly what you're seeing up here. So it looks exactly the same, right? You're witness, okay?
Yep.
Right, there we go. So, and if you're running an application, for example, if I drag this document into my VM and launch, it happens to be a Word file. When Word finally gets launched and Parallels Desktop can see it's actually Word, it changes to some buttons that are appropriate for a word processing application. Boldface, italics, undo, redo, that sort of thing.
No, it's touch bar for Windows apps.
Yes, touch bar for Windows and Windows apps. So what we've done in Parallels Desktop 13, we've built in touch bar buttons for the main Office applications, so Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and Outlook. And for some of those, we actually have sets of buttons depending on what you're doing. Because when you're reading an email, that's different than composing an email, you might want different buttons. And so we detect that state and put the buttons up automatically. We've also built into Parallels Desktop 13 touch bar buttons for all the common browsers, i.e. Edge, Chrome, Mozilla, so on, all the ones we could find. And then a few Windows utilities. And this is great. We've chosen things that are most popularly used inside Parallels Desktop by Mac users. But there are literally tens of thousands of applications users use inside Parallels Desktop. I would have loved to have put support for every one of those in Parallels Desktop 13. It just wasn't practical. So we did the next best thing, which is we give the user the ability to build their own touch bar buttons for any app they want to do. So I'll show you that now with one app. And the app I'll choose, just to make it easy to understand, is Notepad. So let me launch Notepad here. And let's get some text in there, open a file. Okay. So here I have Notepad, and you can see in Touche, I just had the generic function buttons because Parallels Desktop looked and said, oh, we have no button database for Notepad, so we'll just put the generic ones. And we want to give you the ability to edit your own buttons, make your own buttons. So what we decided to use was the Apple standard display for touch bar button customization. If you've not seen it, it's a pretty drastic UI change, but it's the one Apple recommends, so we use it. So when you're in Parallels Desktop and you have an application in the forefront, if you go to the View menu, the menu will say at the end, customize touch bar for name of that application. And when you do, the screen really changes a lot. That's a big change. And so what you do now is you grab any of these buttons you want and drag them down to the real touch bar. Now you can't see me exactly do that because I can't show you the touch bar live, but I can take, for example, the Select All button and drag that down. As I cross the border, it appears now in my touch bar, and I can position it wherever I want it. Okay, that's a good place.
Can you drag it up to Touche or not?
No, Touche doesn't know about that. And the Mac, Mac knows about the touch bar display. It's just another little retina display, and so it does special things there.
It's like a separate screen, you're dragging onto a screen that's off your screen.
Yeah, it's off my screen, as if you had a second monitor.
But you can't see it. We saw it there.
You saw it happen, but you couldn't see me actually dragging it. And let's see, it's a word processing application. Let's drag boldface, italics, and underline down in the touch bar. And for a demo, that's good enough. And so we're done now. And now I come back to Touche, or come back to Notepad. Those buttons are lit up in the touch bar. And if I click on here, Select All, sure enough, Select All works. And that's really great. So, good, thank you very much, okay.
Well, I have to say, sitting here watching you do that, I was actually thinking, what do you mean you drag it down to the touch bar? And then I saw it actually appear on your touch bar as you drag it down. It's like, holy crap, that actually works.
It's like, I mean,
That's why I clapped.
Yeah.
I mean, Apple did that when they launched the
Yeah.
touch bar on the Mac last
Yeah.
year, so it's not something parallels.
No,
No,
I've
no,
never
it's
seen it
the
done
standard,
before.
but
Actually
most
seen
people haven't
it.
seen that. And the thing you have to remember is from the Mac's perspective, the touch bar is just another display. It's small and it's below, but that's all that's special about it.
Yeah.
And so we use the same UI that Apple proposed. So, question?
On that customized page you had before, where is it pulling all those options from? Is that pulling?
Good
from-
question.
from
We
the menu,
configured
or
the
is
Apple
it-
dialog. They give you
Okay.
some preferences, what you can
Yeah.
put there.
Yeah.
We could have changed some things, add some different buttons.
Okay.
We chose what we thought was a reasonable set.
Okay.
So unfortunately, you can't change that.
Okay, so
Yeah.
we're sort of.
You're left with those buttons right
That's
now.
nice. Okay.
But we'll be watching how much this feature is used by users, and people say, I really, really need this other button,
Hmm.
then we'll put it
I
in.
mean, there's always parallels updates on a regular basis, so.
We update the application pretty regularly, especially in the first 4 or 5 months from the release, and so if people make requests, we'll do that.
Okay.
Now, another demo. I'm gonna hit the boldface button here now. And nothing happened. And the reason for that is that what we're doing underneath is we're using Windows shortcuts, and we're sending those to the application. This is the same way we did gesture support for Windows apps. So you all know that there's a gesture for rotate, right? So if you send the rotate key command to Word, it goes, hell, I don't know what the hell that is. It ignores it. That's what's happening here because Notepad has a very non-standard interface for bold italics and so on. In fact, it doesn't have underline. They don't have key commands, so unfortunately those shortcuts don't work. So when you go
But
to
it'll
this,
work in WordPad.
Judy,
It'll work in
if WordPad supported the standard Windows shortcuts, then they will. When you go to this dialog, not every button is going to work in every Windows app because maybe an app doesn't have the notion of boldface. It doesn't know what to do with that key command, so it just ignores it, and you get a beep.
Well, Notepad hasn't changed since Windows 3.1 anyway, so.
Understood, but I wanted to show you buttons that didn't work
Yeah.
because that can happen. And like I said, we're hoping maybe in the future, in a future update, if people really use this app a lot, use this functionality a lot, and you want to send us your buttons you designed for this really wonderful application, we'll build those back into Parallels Desktop and we'll make that set grow. We'll see.
When Microsoft replaces Notepad with Notepad 3D, then you can do it.
Yeah, that good point. You know, I actually wanted to do Paint 3D.
Yeah.
Paint 3D has no shortcuts at all.
Incredible.
So there was no support for that. I was really bummed, but I wanted to do that, but it didn't work. So I think this is a great feature, an innovation. I'm sure Apple never thought anybody would do this. It would support Windows apps with the Mac, touch bar. But here it is, and we're really happy to give that to users in 13, and I think it's a nice feature. So there's my example of bringing a cool Apple feature over to Windows and Windows apps. Now, what about the other direction? The other direction is, we haven't done that too often. There haven't been features that were sort of cool enough. Cortana was the first example, and that was really cool. I really like that. So, Microsoft has been really great about releasing to people like me who are insiders, Windows builds that have new features, the insider preview builds. It's a beta or even an alpha, so it can be an issue, but a feature that's coming out in what Microsoft calls the Fall Creators Update for Windows 10 is a feature called the People Bar.
It's a spring edition, guys.
Yeah, I can't help Microsoft terminology there. You can complain to them. That's what they call it. And People Bar allows you to put people in the taskbar, your contacts. So, and when you click on their faces, you get a little contact card where you can initiate email this person, a Skype, call, yada. But notice what happened. We put that same icon in the Mac dock. And I'll keep it there. And Microsoft is limited by the size of the taskbar here, so the icons are small. We aren't so limited, so the icons are bigger and beautiful and so on. How do I add people to that? Let me show you. So I go now to my list of contacts, and right now, People Bar supports the contacts you have in Mail. mail.app built into Windows 10. I assume that when they release this feature finally, it'll support Outlook contacts, but I can't predict that. So when I go here, I say, I want to add this person right here. And sure enough, she appears in the dock. I can keep her in the dock and then click on my head, which I love to do. So that's great. What if I have other people I want to add? Let's add, see if there's anybody else. I search through my contacts. Well, there's a good guy.
Hey.
Let's add him. And there his face appears in the dock. It's really cool. And for Chuckles, let's do one more. So I'll add the engineering VP for Parallels, who's responsible for Parallels Desktop, and that's Nick, right here. Nice picture. And Nick appears in the dock, but notice, he doesn't appear in the taskbar. The reason for that is Microsoft limited the slots in the taskbar to 3. Because Microsoft people only have that number of friends. But Mac people have a lot more friends, and so we have basically an unlimited number, as long as your dock is supported, we put it in there. Question?
So you have to add them through the people bar in Windows?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. And so that we notice that in Parallels Desktop, and then we put the appropriate bigger icon, better looking icon in the Mac dock. But when I click on one of these faces like this, the normal thing happens. You get their contact card and so on. This works with your Windows mode or in coherence, where even the desktop isn't showing, it still works. So we think we first saw People Bar in an insider preview about 3-4 weeks ago or so. We thought, this is kind of cool. Let's bring this over to the Mac. That would be our feature for Parallels Desktop 13, and it's worked out really well. I was surprised that it didn't support Outlook first, but I remembered, Microsoft is organized as big teams. The Windows team is here, the Office team is over here, and they sometimes talk to each other, but not all the time. So that's why it didn't support Outlook. So I had to get an account in Mail and make that work. Anyway.
How many can you put in your Parallels bar?
Oh, as many as the dock will hold. And the dock keeps getting smaller as we add more icons. I've seen people with, dock that's like this with like 20. I actually, for a demo for inside the company, I had my entire dock filled with people. And I had them jumping around. It was a really kind of funny little movie. People like that. So we think this is a really great feature that Microsoft has added to Windows 10, or is going to add to Windows 10 in the fall, what they call the fall. And we're real pleased to bring it over to the Mac. Whenever Windows 10 with People Bar is issued as a customer release, ready for ordinary people, my Parallels Desktop 13 will be there and it'll be supported. So we're real pleased about that. It's a nice feature, we think, and that's a good example of, again, cool things from Microsoft coming over to the Mac. Okay, so let's continue. So, Kevin mentioned the notion of other OSs being supported, and I told you that while I considered it, I didn't think High Sierra was actually far enough along for me to rely on it for an important press tour like this, but putting it in a VM, that's fine. I don't even care if there's a bug, because if the bug is then contained to the sandbox of the VM. I have run beta OSs or even alpha OSs in a VM, sent bug reports to the company, or sent kudos to the company saying, wow, really good job, I like this. And High Sierra worked that way right now. So we're real pleased about that. When High Sierra is released to consumers, we will double check that everything is working in Parallels Desktop, and probably we'll have to issue an update, and that'll be update that handles any issues related to High Sierra, either as a host on the Mac or as a guest OS in a VM. And at that point, High Sierra will be fully supported. We can't do it now because it's too constantly changing, so it's a moving target. But once it stabilizes and they do a customer release, we will double check and make sure everything's fine, that all the ways you install a VM work, and all the features of Parallels Desktop work with High Sierra as a host, and move on from there.
And presumably you need Parallels Desktop 13
Yes.
on High
Yeah.
Sierra.
We aren't going to go back and rev Parallels Desktop 7 or 10 for High Sierra. It just doesn't make any sense to let's do that.
And and obviously not 12 either, you'll just have to upgrade.
Yeah, it probably should
But
happen.
there'll be some upgrade
Yeah.
promotion.
Yes, I suspect so, but I'm not promising anything.
Mm.
Now, for grins, let's also, for history reasons or nostalgia, let's launch also Windows XP. And in a moment, you'll hear the sound you all remember from XP's startup sound. Come on, guys. Don't make a liar out of me now. There we go. Very famous. Okay, so this is great. I have, 4 OSs running right now. 3 in VMs, 1 on the host, but wow, it's taking a lot of space on my screen. This is kind of getting crowded. I wish I could just have another way of looking at that VM that didn't take so much space. Well, Apple released in Sierra picture-in-picture. And so making use of that in Parallels Desktop was important. So I can put picture-in-picture view, which is a new view in Parallels Desktop for all these OSs. I'll even do it for Windows 10. And as is expected, and the way Apple designed it, these float on top of things on the Mac. So if I launch an application on the Mac, like High Sierra, like Safari, and go into full screen mode, those picture-in-picture views still stay on top. So this is a great way of monitoring an application. I would have seen, if I'd been fast enough, I would have seen that little alert come up in Windows XP in the picture-in-picture view. Oh, what happened there? Then I can go back to major view, window view, and see it, interact with it like this.
And you can obviously put it on the other desktops if you want.
Yes, exactly. You have all the flexibility you have with the desktop support on the Mac. So, a new view for your VMs. I will admit, the average user of Parallels Desktop has exactly 1 VM. Only nutcases like me, have like 12 or more. Just to remind you, you can install as many OSs as you want, and you can space it on your hard drive. You can run as many simultaneously as you have RAM for, because the OS running in Parallels Desktop needs real RAM. It's locked down for that OS. Okay, let's get out of full screen view for Safari, and let's close that, in fact. And I'll get rid of each of these OSs. I'll bring them back to I'll bring them back to normal view, exit picture-in-picture, close XP. Come on. Okay, I'll go here. All right.
We'll have to force quit it.
Looks like we have an issue there. I'll deal with that in a moment. Let's bring this one back. And quit it. And I'll quit XP. Don't know what that took. Yes. And I'll bring Windows 10 back to Windows mode
Can you
also.
click on that little gear and make it full screen from that?
I don't think so. No,
Okay.
it just brings up the configuration channel. So if
You can't double click.
It's a
that.
transition, isn't it? You go exit picture-in-picture and then enter full screen.
Yeah.
After that, it's it.
Okay. The next thing I want to talk
Good
about.
feature request.
Yeah, good. A good point. Is performance. So as Kevin mentioned, everybody always likes to see a lot of new performance in Parallels Desktop. Last year, if you remember, what I did to show you performance was I played a game. I played Overwatch from Blizzard. It still performs really well, and I'm real pleased about that. But I wanted to try something new. And everybody knows that CAD/CAM applications are notoriously heavy users of the CPU and the graphics card. So over the years, we've increased our support for OpenGL in Parallels Desktop. I wish I could say we had complete support and every OpenGL application will work just fine. That's a big job. We get closer and closer with each year. And so that means more games run, also applications like CAD/CAM. We get really good performance here. So this is an application used by lighting engineers, designing lighting for rooms or buildings. And we're real pleased how performant this is as an example, of CAD/CAM application that works in Parallels Desktop. But I got to caution you, the average new game, it uses OpenGL, doesn't work well on parallel desktop. Supporting games is really hard. If you bought your PC 6 months ago, it might not run that game that came out last week either. It's just a problem. And while Parallels Desktop is a fantastic application, it's not magic. People ask me, well, can I make my MacBook Air run like a $40,000 PC workstation? No. I'm sorry, I can't do that. Okay.
Will it run things like Revit and Autodesk though?
And yes, it will. And you'll get good performance, and some of them you'll get actually just fine performance that you saw in my CAD application there. Some won't. We added some features in Parallels Desktop in 11, so that some games or CAD applications that required lots of graphics memory, they wouldn't even launch before, and now they will because you increase the amount of graphics RAM in a virtual machine. So I wanted to show you one other feature, but unfortunately, we don't have a Retina screen up here, so you aren't going to be able to see it very well. And we don't, when I use projectors, we don't have Retina projectors yet either. So all I could do is make a screenshot and show it to you. We've used some of the Mac's graphics power and shaders to improve the rendering of both text and graphics. And you can see here, like, the word share, really pixelated in Parallels Desktop 12 and much better in Parallels Desktop 13. And also true for graphics. So if you have a Retina screen and you use it in the mode where you're actually setting the resolution by yourself, you'll get this rendering improvement. And we're real happy about this. The graphics guys worked a long time to make this work, and they're using features that just came out on the Mac OS to get better graphics in Windows.
We didn't boast about the left-hand side last year.
No, it was good, but it's way better. And I had to blow it up so you could really see the difference. And
It was on our list to tell you, but we just didn't get to
and
it.
this thing of text and so on just came out much better now. And this is like a year's worth of work by the graphics team. Okay, last demo is to talk about Parallels Toolbox. So you might remember, Parallels Toolbox is a set of single-purpose tools, typically that have no parameters or anything to set or anything to learn. You just use them, they do one job really, really well, and then you move on with the task at hand. We've been adding over the year regularly new tools. So in Mac Toolbox, we're up to 32 tools now, from 20 originally. So that's great. And people have a subscription to either Parallels Desktop or to Toolbox itself directly, get those new tools as they come out. I'll show you an example of a new tool. New tool is Make a GIF. So you could buy, a $30 or $40 tool, but Parallels Desktop Toolbox does it for you. I just drag any kind of video into Make a GIF. It makes a GIF, puts it back in the same folder, and I'll show you that GIF here by just dragging it to Safari. And great example of a GIF production was really easy to do. I often get the question when I give Toolbox demos, what's the most commonly used tool? And there's actually two that are used pretty often. One that I use personally the most often is download video. So I'm going to download a video here, and all you have to do is go to a video on YouTube, on Facebook, and get the video's URL. So I go to this video here, and we'll stop that. All I do is up here in Safari, grab the video's URL and drag it to the tool. And it automatically downloads it in the highest quality available on YouTube, and you then have that video and it'll give you an alert where it is, and it put it, I didn't see the alert this time, let's see, put it here. There it is, there's the video. I travel a lot, and sometimes there's a video I want to watch, but I just can't have time during the normal business day.
Like this one.
So I save it, and I put it on my iPad or my Mac, and I watch on the plane. Because, as you know, wireless service on the plane is okay for emails, but for videos, it's like horrible. So this is a great way for me to do things. I filled up a little USB stick with videos I wanted to watch on the plane as I flew over here. And I'll do that for the rest of the tour. So this is a very commonly used tool. Actually, for me, the most commonly used tool. Other one that's also very commonly used is, the other tool I was going to show you was, what was record the screen. So I want to document a bug to a software developer. I want to show my aunt how to use this feature in something. So record video. I can record the whole screen like this and say, here's how you find that video on YouTube. You go here, you go to Parallels TV, you scroll down a bit, and you'll find the video you want. Great. And let's try that again. So there's the video. And so it records my voice and so on. I'm talking to somebody.
TV, you scroll down a bit.
It's so easy. I get videos
Instant fame.
from other Parallels employees all the time. Kurt, here's a bug in Windows. See the video. Let your contacts at Microsoft know about that. Kurt, here's a bug in the Mac. Oh my God, I can't believe Apple has shipped this. Tell them about it. Or here's a feature that should be in Parallels Desktop next version. Put this on your list. I get videos all the time from people because it's so easy to make them. Record your voice naturally and so on.
So you're saying it's worse now, your life?
My life is worse, but the products are better.
Parallels funniest home videos.
Yeah.
The price you got to pay for who you are, Kurt.
So, and one more new tool that I think I'm going to use a lot is adjust the screen resolution. I want a particular resolution that for my particular task, now as a podcast or whatever, I can get support for resolutions that the Mac OS doesn't give you native support for, but we've made it work for you. The video card does make it work. So I query the video card and put together a bunch of lists of resolutions you can use. So that's the overview of the toolbox. As I mentioned, we're now in 2.0, which coming out today, same day as Parallels Desktop. And we also, during the year, as Kevin mentioned, released Parallels Toolbox for Windows. And it looks very similar. It's a Windows style look. And so the number of tools is not quite as many for two reasons. One, this is version 1.0, not 2.0. And two, some of the tools in Mac Toolbox weren't really appropriate for Windows. Windows had that already built in, so why do we bother porting a tool over? So we removed those ones that were superfluous, and we're bringing over new ones. And just like Toolbox for Mac, we will add to the number of tools that are in Toolbox for Windows as the year goes on. Hard to predict how often this will happen. And you only get new tools if you have a subscription to Parallels Desktop or Parallels Toolbox. So how do you get Parallels Toolbox for Windows? What we've done is in Parallels Desktop 13, we've added a new menu item, Install Parallels Toolbox for Windows. You can do this for every one of your Windows VMs, no limit. For Mac, when you want to get download Toolbox, you go to the Preferences dialog of Parallels Desktop, and there's a button right here for Toolbox. And this says Open because it knows it's there. If you didn't have it installed, it would say Install. And it's automatically given to you and licensed to you for you on the Mac you're using Parallels Desktop.
If you're a Mac snob for whatever reason and you don't need to run Windows, can you still run Parallels Toolbox for Mac?
Good question. So if you don't need to use Windows, we've made Parallels Toolbox a separate product. You can get it from our website. It's I don't know the Australian price.
$14.25.
It's $10 US and it's
$14.25
per year for subscription for these 32 tools.
Mm-hmm.
They really do simplify things. If you have you want to take a screenshot, you want to do not disturb because you give your presentation, you want to hide the icons on your desktop, a variety of things, and they're all available for you.
Mm-hmm.
And they really are very easy to use. And we're real pleased about the reception we've gotten to Toolbox, and we're going to continue this as a premier product with Parallels.
Oh, yeah.
The only thing I can think of is that maybe maybe you want to have a
Thanks, Alex.
Thank you.
no one ever updates the computer, right? It's supposed to happen automatically, and I think in Windows 10 it does. And I might suggest that you put a little thing there that says, "Hey, you've got updates for." Mac
Good
OS
point.
or
A
Windows,
good idea for a new tool.
Or
Yes.
or any of your programs.
Yeah.
And maybe you.
I will
there's-
send that to the Toolbox
There's
team.
9.9. There's a whole bunch of different things, but
Yeah.
if you had one, there's chances are people would
Yeah.
use it.
Yeah, I rely on Microsoft to tell me when there's a new insider preview. I could use that tool like that.
Yeah.
we do the best thing we can in the toolbox. Sometimes things are just too hard to do and we can't do them, or they would take too much extra knowledge that we didn't have. So that's the end of my demo. I tried to show you a number of features in Parallels Toolbox that Kevin mentioned, but I'll let him close and we'll open up for Q&A.
Kurt, thank you very much. So just a couple of last things around just around pricing. Very straightforward. We haven't changed anything from last year. The price for Parallels Desktop 13 is $99.95 AUD, and also Pro and Business Edition are the same at $124.95 a year subscription. I will note that Parallels Desktop 13, when you buy it, it comes with Parallels Toolbox. The version you get of Parallels Toolbox is not updated during the year. You get the 32 tools that you have. With the subscriptions, Pro and Business Edition, you get the new tools during the year as part of your subscription. You can upgrade to the Pro Edition for $64.95, and you can also, which is the yearly subscription, you can also do your normal upgrades for $64.95 from version 11 or version 12 to version 13. Some people elect to skip a version. I don't know why they would do that, but they can do that if they want to go from 11 to 13. This is the time to do it. Again, availability, we'll reskin our website tonight, 11:01 p.m. or 11 p.m. So
It takes a while to reskin the whole website.
Yeah, that's
It'll
it.
gradually,
So,
it does take
it will be available, and we have a tech guarantee for those customers who've bought from the 1st of August up until the 30th of October. They will get version 13 as well, so they don't miss out. And then the last slide, I believe, is our worldwide pricing. Like if any of you are going to Europe, you can spend $79, which is a bit more than over here. But we're not going to get into the controversy of exchange rate fluctuations as part of this. And I guess the final part of it is just a quick summary of what Kurt went through and what we discussed. The big features we feel are the touch bar and people bar. We've brought a couple of, a feature from Windows, a feature from Mac. We've improved performance. The new P&P view mode is really cool, and the performance improvements we've added. What are we going to do next year? We say this every year. What are we going to do?
It's getting harder and harder.
The guys managed to do it. We improve it. We everything that Apple and Microsoft throw at us, we're there to bring it. We will. It was probably reluctant to probably pick 13 as a number. We will be here for version 14, I believe, sometime next year. Can't tell you when. And also the new tools in Parallels Toolbox. We think that the market will like those. A lot of your readers will appreciate some of those, whether they're a Parallels desktop user or where they want to buy it standalone. So with that, any questions?
Before questions, Toolbox, these are standalone keys, which you can use either on your Mac or your Windows. I'm in a good mood first session. I'll give you two so that you can share with your friends, family. Okay, and you can, these are standalones.
It reminds me of the scene in Trading Places where you leave the tip, Christmas tip. I'll go to the movies.
And the Girls Desktop Pro license is also in the press kit for you to try out. It's a 1-year subscription, Pro version. And that comes with Toolbox as it is, but the cards that I gave you separately, that's a standalone, okay?
What's the Windows Toolbox pricing?
Again, it's $14.25 AUD.
So let's just pretend for a moment I am as stupid as I look. Why would I want the Pro Edition?
So Pro Edition has it's for the. Actually, I'm going to have to hand over to Kurt because my brain explodes after talking about a few of the features. But
Right.
it's really for your for developers, web developers, programmers. It includes a huge amount of tools around development. There's a plugin for Visual Studio. Kurt will tell you a few of the extra features. And there's a great list on our website of all the extra
As Kevin
features.
mentioned, the features that are extra features that are in Pro or Business are typically pretty geeky features. For example, I know it sounds really trivial to you, but getting the IP address of a VM is actually a non-trivial thing to do. We expose it now in the UI, so you can really grab it right away and get a hold of it. We have support for Visual Studio and for other developer tools built into Parallels Desktop Pro. And you can build bigger and beefier VMs with more cores and more RAM. You're limited in standard to 4 or 6 cores and a certain number of amount of RAM, but it's much bigger.
I think it's
in-
16 gig of RAM.
Yeah, I think you're right, 16. But then, of course, when you get your Mac Pro, like you get one right after me, the one that Kevin's buying for me, thank you again, Kevin, you'll be able to take full advantage of that new machine. There are 3 or 4 other little things. But basically, there are more geeky features. The average user doesn't really care about the IP address of a VM, but a developer might. In Visual Studio support, you're actually able to develop an app in one VM and debug it in another VM. That's really cool. So I can be developing in Windows 10 and test my app in Windows 8 or Windows 7, right there on that same machine. And oh, there's a bug there, and fix that, and then try it again, right there. So
It's a
that's
massive time saving as well
It's a
for people who
nice
do this every
feature.
day. The alternative is hours of extra. It's just a real godsend for for developers.
That kind of thing.
Yeah.
And for business users, the business user features that are extra are aimed at the IT admin who has to deploy Parallels Desktop. So there are things like managing the number of seats you have, checking out, I gave my own a business edition to PD and she hasn't used it. I'm taking that away, giving it to somebody useful like Kevin.
Also, with the business edition, it's a single key. So if you've got 100 users, it's that one single key. You can see a list of everybody of John's MacBook Pro, Alex's MacBook Pro, Brian's MacBook Pro, the MacBook Air, and if somebody leaves a company, you can take that key away.
And then deploy to somebody else if you only have so many seats. If you're near your edge of number of seats you've got, you want to add more, you can do that in the portal, which is a feature in for Business Edition. And then I think the feature here is really pretty cool. Single application mode. So you're able to build an example, and I can show you this if you're interested. IT admin can configure a package of Parallels Desktop, a VM, and then it can name 1 or 2 or 3 applications that will be revealed to those users, but the rest of Parallels Desktop, they won't see it at all. So if you want to limit the training burden for your department, your company, they only need IE, I'm just going to give them IE and that's it. This is the way to do this. This is a requested feature.
It's almost like a kiosk mode.
Yeah, it's kind of like that.
That's only in the business mode?
It's only in Business Edition, correct.
And the other reason was to get the updates of Toolbox throughout the year.
Yes, yeah, so if you have a subscription to either Pro or Business, you get updates to Toolbox, you got updates to Parallels Desktop also are made available to you. You can actually, with the Business Edition, you can point to your own update server inside your company, so users aren't getting updates from Parallels until you've tested them with your apps and you decide to deploy it at that point.
The other thing with the Business Edition and the Pro is the support is 24/7, 365. With the Standard Edition, the support is still really good. You get phone support for the first 30 days, and phone, chat, Skype, everything else, and then we go to 18 months, well 17 months after that of email support and forums and everything. We don't get any problem. We have a great support team, and it's not a real drag having that just email support and Skype and those things for the standard users, but certainly the business and pro users pay a little more of a premium, and they do get that extra premium support.
Did I answer your question?
Yep.
Good. Other questions?
Wow, this is good.
This is good.
Okay,
We love
great.
questions.
I'm glad you enjoyed the demo and understood the features.
The 49 slides were very,
Went through them very
very
fast.
good.
And you can put people's faces in your doc, and that's really cool.
We love that.
And when you are in coherence, I didn't show you that. When you're in coherence mode, of course I'm going to pick my mode because I like.
You can delete
You
me
get the
out.
same contact card, but in coherence it shows up bigger. So I like that. And then if you're really mad, you could say, "Who is this guy? He's a loser. I'm getting rid of him." Come on.
You should get rid of Alex, actually.
And that's fun. What?
Get rid of Alex.
No, I'm not going to do that. So, touch bar support, we're really pleased how that came out. We're looking forward to seeing how often people configure their own touch bar buttons for an app. And if it's a lot, then we'll figure out some mechanism for them to communicate those to us, and for us to build it back into the product, give them credit or something. Doing all like 30,000 apps, it just wasn't a possibility. It's not, that's just too many. Also, we don't know those apps that well. You need a real expert in the app to design the buttons.
Build it and they will come.
Yes, I hope so.
All right, I think that.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much for coming, everybody.
Housekeeping,
Thanks,
11